Okay, so time to dive into a model, and then we go back later to saying, looking at whether this is helping us to understand better the real world. So, what's the model? It's very, very similar to our resource use models, right? We've got y is ALL to the 1 minus alpha, r to the alpha. So that's the same model we've had before, but we're then saying multiplied by e to the power of minus p to the phi, where p is pollution flow. So if p is 0, this is 1, right? So then we're just back where we started, pollution is not damaging. But as p gets bigger, this starts to fall from 1 towards 0. When p is very large, this is 0 and we have no production. So here we have pollution is damaging the productive process. We could easily set this up instead so that pollution directly damaged utility, not the production process. The results, the basic intuition and so on would all be the same. Okay, doesn't matter. And then we have some exogenous growth. Here in the slide I've let population grow as well. Again, it doesn't matter. Here I'm going to save ink and just say we've got exogenous technological progress. And what is R? Again, we're going to keep it really simple, and we're going to say we've got a set of resource inputs and resource inputs, and they're perfect substitutes. So total R is just the sum of the particular inputs. And what is pollution? Pollution is the sum of the emissions from these, which is just psi times the quantities. So if psi is big, that is a very polluting resource. If psi is 0, it's perfectly clean. Okay. And the unit cost of each of these is Wj. So we've got exactly the picture I drew in the last slide, right? That we've got households sending labor to the final goods sector. Production there can either go to consumption or into these intermediate sectors, which are the mines effectively. And from the mines we extract these resources, quantities. So this is R, and this is like D1, D2, D3. The production function here for D1 is just linear and stationary, so that the price of resource D1 just stays the same, W1. And the same for D2 and the same for D3. But depending on which of these we use, the pollution flow is different. And the pollution lands back on the factory and diminishes overall production. Okay, so that's the model. There we are. And we can interpret these as literally as different inputs, like low sulfur coal, high sulfur coal, oil, gas, wind. We could also have high sulfur coal plus adding a scrubber flue gas desulfurization onto the chimney, which will raise W and cut P, cut psi, yeah, for that. The new technology, if W1 is coal, W2 is coal plus the scrubber, W2 will cost more and have a lower psi. Okay, so we've got all these alternative technologies. What's going to happen? Let's see. Yeah, and we're basically, since we're assuming a constant price, we're assuming that there's a large homogeneous stocks of these different inputs. Yeah, they're not about to run out. If they are, that will complicate things a bit. If a dirty stuff is running out, that's great because that will push the price up without the need for tax. If clean stuff is running out, that's more of a problem. Luckily, it's the dirty stuff that's, if anything, going to run out. But if you think of fossil fuels, it's not that relevant, right? We have to leave fossil fuels in the ground. So they're not, unless we have a total environmental catastrophe, they will never run out. Okay, and then a bit of notation. We call aggregate production net of extraction costs as Z. So Z is, we define Z as Y minus extraction costs. Okay, which is W, the sum of Wj dj. Okay. And we've already talked about laissez-faire. In laissez-faire, you would just use the cheapest resource forever. You would have more and more pollution, and eventually your net production would go to zero. But because the firms are infinitely small, they ignore their effect on total pollution, and you get environmental disaster. Okay, but we're interested in what happens under optimal regulation. And I think I'm going to stop there.